Before we start this awesome episode, we got to give a shout out to our friends and sponsors at Pet Greens.
Yes, this is like our cat's 5-star salad bar.
Right. They nibble on their organic cat grass like it's fancy hors d'oeuvres before every meal.
Yeah, and honestly, it's really an important part of their routine as well. It helps with their digestion, and it even helps with those hair balls.
Yeah, it does. And it's totally organic. No pesticides, herbicides, or any of that junk.
Nope, just super healthy greens that bring the outside in and help our indoor cats thrive inside.
You can find Pet Greens on Amazon, Chewy, Petco, PetSmart, PSP, and for our Canadian listeners at Pet Value too.
Okay, so now let's get to the podcast.
With wine, always with wine. I'm Jay.
I'm Adrian.
And together we are the
Two Crazy Cat
Ladies. I'm gonna cut you.
I think I just peed.
Buckle up.
We're back in the closet.
Welcome to another episode of Back in the Closet with the Two Crazy Cat Ladies. April this month is going to be jam-packed with some of the most exciting, unique, and different information that many of us have never even heard of before. And we're learning from the experts in all of these different Fields. I was like yields?
There's
What does that
some
mean?
awesome new stuff out there that's new to us and probably new to a lot of you. And we are kicking it off with one of our favorites.
Yes, and crowd favorite, all of you guys' favorite as well. Penny Wood, aka Dr. Zoolittle herself, is here in the house tonight to talk about, wait for it, stem cell therapy for cats. And what's exciting about this is everybody's heard of stem cell therapy, right? You hear of it, but you don't necessarily know what it is, what it's for, how it could actually help our cats. And in your head, if you're like me, in your head, you think, oh, well, that's an expensive visit that I would probably have to fly to another state in order to, find a vet that would do some kind of stem cell therapy. It's easier than you thought, guys. Thank you and welcome back, Dr. Zoolittle.
Hey, thank you so much. I love being back in the closet with you guys, getting into all the good details and usually finding one of your cats peering around somewhere in there as well.
Yes.
Yeah, we've already got Annie here. So for anyone that hasn't already met you, anyone that's not already a fan favorite, can you do a short intro and let people know who you are and how you're changing this world in such a beautiful way?
Okay, so the mission here is to actually stop animal suffering. So I'm an animal welfare scientist focusing in on cognitive ethology, which is animal behavior from the emotional cognitive awareness side of things. And then I pair that that half of welfare with the body, the physical, the health side of welfare as well. So happiness and health go together to make full optimized welfare for animals. I do that in the zoos and I do that for pet parents with their pets at home. But when we can combine regenerative and functional medicine, we actually can move the needle with health rather than sticking band-aids on the way that we often hear about in the conventional healthcare, which isn't really, it's sick care. And so this is a really exciting space to be talking about and staying cutting edge with, because it's moving quickly and the results are phenomenal. So that's where I sort of sit in this sort of education and consulting and working with all kinds of different species, lions, tigers, bears, oh my, which is so fun. And then we get to bring that down to the kitty cats at home as well.
I'm just so excited.
Okay, so for anyone that hasn't heard of stem cell therapy, or they have heard of it and they really just don't know what it is, in basic terms, what does that mean? What is stem cell therapy?
So this is actually the body's innate and class A style of healing. So we didn't invent this. This is not a technology that came out of a lab or someone's genius idea. This is what the body is actually doing itself. So we've known about it for a long time on the science side of it. We have our immune system, and anyone who's listened to me speak before knows that I say this all the time. The only thing that will ever heal any animal of anything is their own immune system. Doctor, drug, nurse, vet, therapy, magic treatment, it will work with the body somehow. It will provide something to the body, whatever therapy you use. But if you don't have a functioning immune system, it is not going to do anything.
Right.
So we have to look after the immune system. Now, the immune system has a search and destroy side, which is the one that looks out for the invaders, the pathogens, the bugs, the things that you don't want, and eliminates those. Anything synthetic, the body says, excuse me, you don't belong here, out you go, gets rid of that. But there's the other half, right, that is the repair side of things, right? So if you cut your finger open, it would start to bleed, you would hurt. In a short period of time, there'd be a lot of redness, throbbing, there'd be, it'd swell up, right? You get inflammation, you get heat, you get all those clinical signs of trauma to the tissue. And then the immune system goes flooding in there to create that heat, because to create the heat means you're going to kill the bugs. Right? They don't like high temperatures. So this is a safety mechanism. So the body's working to heal. So stem cells are part of that crew. They come on in because they hear the alarm go off. Trauma, trauma in the body. They're like, oh, hello, that's me. Zoom, and along they come through the bloodstream, land at the trauma site, and then say, right, who do you need me to be? Because they're effectively a blank check. A stem cell is a cell that hasn't decided what it wants to be when it grows up. And it says, I can be pretty much whatever you need. What do you need me to be? Do you need me to be a bone cell? Do you need me to be a nerve cell? Do you want me to be an epithelial cell? Do you need me to be a vision cell? Like, what's the deal here? I'll do that, whatever you need. And so what happens is that kind of, that blank cell, that stem cell jumps in, differentiates, which means it starts to specialize. Instead of being like this, I can be anything, it starts to become the exact thing it needs to be. So now you have brand new, zero age, perfectly functioning cell to replace the one that was damaged. So what happens then? You get healed. Yeah. So this is how that works. The body's doing that all the time anyway. We're just now starting to harness that, because as an animal gets older, the number of circulating stem cells in the bloodstream goes down. And that happens in humans, happens in pets, right? The number goes down as you get older. It's just one of those things. But you can biohack this. So stem cell therapy allows you to maintain the high levels of youthful stem cells to get that amazing kind of healing.
I love that you describe that as a blank check, because that is like so exactly like, that's what I needed to hear to be like, yes, okay, because that blank check can pay for whatever. I need a new car, I need a new shirt, I need a new, right? And so within the body, these blank checks, these stem cells are able to, oh, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. Okay, so how does it work? I mean, like when it comes to, here's let me just tell you what I've heard about stem cell therapy, right? So we are friends with a veterinarian. She's been on this podcast before. We love her so much, Dr. Barry Sands. And a couple years ago, she came to Vegas and she was telling us about this laser stem cell thing that they were doing, right? And that's in practice. And there were only like 2 vets in the country doing it. She was one of them, learning how to do this. And it was where you you basically draw blood. If I'm remembering correctly, it's like where you draw blood and then you spin it and it moves to, like, maybe there's some stem cells or something else like that. And then you put it back into the body, and then you take the laser and you tell it where to go in the body. Like, say the thyroid needs help or the liver needs help, then you would kind of like direct those stem cells. That sounds like a lot, but that's not what you're talking about today, right?
So if you want to look at it broadly speaking, and let's do the 101 for a second, just to get the context of things. There's effectively 3 types of stem cell therapy that you can do. Right. So there's a procedural stem cell harvesting. So an animal or person will have a minor op. It's basically a liposuction or a small incision or small blood draw. So it's very low invasive, but it is an invasive thing into the body. You can also do it from the bone marrow, which is a lot more invasive because that's quite deep in the body. Right. But you're taking a sample of tissue that is rich in stem cells from the patient. Then you're spinning that, as you say, to separate out the stem cells from other material that you've got. So it's just a sifting, sorting process, because we don't want to inject back in fat molecules, for example, right? We want to just have those stem cells. So then those are, they can sometimes be amplified, which means we multiply how many there are. It depends on the country that happens in, whether or not you have to, because that takes time to do. And so there's some rules about that. But then effectively, yes, you will re-inject those stem cells back into the body either into the blood supply itself, so into a vein, so that then they can go everywhere in the body, or alternatively, you can do a targeted injection. So say it's in a joint, so let's say the shoulder, you can do targeted injections into the joint itself, so it goes into the joint cavity rather than the bloodstream, and it's going to then be very, very targeted in its approach to healing all the tissues inside a damaged shoulder. So that's a procedural one, and that's similar. That's how Dr. Barry Sands is working with that. It's taking something out, doing some putting back in, and then using the laser to guide it for location. Stem cells have their own communication system with the other parts of the immune system to target as well. But if you're wanting to be a bit more intentional about that, then using light therapy, phytobiomodulation with that as well does work. So then the second style of stem cell therapy is phytoembryonics. So phytoembryonics are the stem cells that are inside plants. So they are, when a plant grows, there are little roots, little shoots, little flowers, little tiny rootlets, right? These are full of stem cells, which is why if you grow your sprouts, like broccoli sprouts and alfalfa and things like that, eat those for days because they're so rich in plant stem cells. So you can take them internally, or you can use them like homeopathy as a sort of a medicine therapy that way. So this is from another entire kingdom, right? So this is the plant kingdom donating some power to the animal kingdom. So that's not what we're talking about either. And then the third style is stem cell nutrition, stem cell activation. So that's kind of where the meat and potatoes are for us today. Excuse the pun on that. But there are a whole number of plants in the in the wild that have the chemical signature that mimics the chemical signature that young bodies have. So young bodies have a high chemical signature of this particular molecule that says bone marrow, which is where stem cells are made, release those stem cells, like release the hounds, let them go, let them run, let them do the thing. But that's the problem. When that molecule, that signaling molecule starts to dip, they're still getting made in the bones, but they're not getting the notification to release. They're not getting the call to action. So what the plant nutrition does is mimics the chemistry that tells the bone marrow, let them go, set them free, do the thing. And so it's an activator of the body's own stem cells that are already being made. There's no invasive therapy. There's no cross-species contamination thing or loss of efficacy. There's no invasive procedure. So it's a win-win. And that's the third style. And it's very, very new. And not a lot of people have heard about it.
Oh, wow. And that's what we're talking about tonight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited about this. Okay. So the first question that everybody's going to have is, what does it help with?
Okay. So here's the thing. Any animal's body is entirely made up of cells for their self, right? There's some water and other things too. And obviously we're quite high percentage water, but the actual construction of the body is cells. So a stem cell can become any cell. So therefore it can become it can fix any problem in theory. I have to stress that in theory, because we have to prove that it can do X, Y, and Z. And so there are studies that then take you through and look at the clinical markers and what's being done and the improvements and everything else. But in theory, everything, because every part of the body is a cell, right? So there isn't really a limit to it until we find that there's a limit to it. And so far we haven't found one.
You haven't. Okay. So then what kind of ailments have you seen that this type of stem cell therapy really helps with? And maybe possibly specifically in cats, but
it's new.
Yeah, I know it's new, but in animals just in general, what kind of ailments or diseases are you seeing? Because I know that there were some people in a Facebook group that I'm in that was looking for like anything. And I was like, you should join our podcast on April 1st, because I think maybe there's a possibility that stem cell therapy might be what can help with your cat. So what is it? Tell us.
So the heritage of research and clinical application of stem cell therapy. Now, this is the procedural one, the first one I talked about, where we take tissues, augment them, put them back in. Most of the work has been done in that space. That's been around for quite some time, and it's been very heavily weighted towards osteoarthritis and joint issues. So these were usually given to high performance animals, race horses, pedigree dogs, that kind of thing, that were being shown that people had the money, because when something's new, it's expensive. And so those are the guys who typically had the finances to do that. So the science then directed its focus on joints. So there's loads of joint improvements, and that goes across all species. It's just it was very heavily weighted initially with the dogs and horses. So osteoarthritis and intervertebral disc disease and hip dysplasia and bone spurs and all of that stuff. But obviously it's not limited to that. And so there's a patient right now who is taking the stem cells. He's got some rather wonky diabetes. Like he's a cat with some rather peculiar diabetes. He's really off the charts. It's a medical mystery kind of, and so he's on the stem cells now and showing changes in on the markers. And we know from the research that stem cell nutrition has the capability to regenerate the insulin producing cells inside the pancreas. So when a type 1 that never got enough of those cells in the first place, or dysfunctional ones, can actually be reversed, and we've seen that in the literature. So we're hoping that cat's going to take that journey as we go and then become, fully functioning again. But liver markers have been restored in cats that have got liver problems. We've seen, again, some of the osteoarthritis things. We see gut-brain axis things change quite dramatically. So when there's gut problems, leaky gut, dysbiosis kind of things, so that's the microbiome itself, but the lining and the nervous communication is cells again. So when we use those stem cells to help heal the gut environment, we're then changing the chemistry for the gut-brain axis, and suddenly all these anxiety problems and unfriendly kind of behaviors and things that the cats have been using as a coping mechanism because they've been out of whack gets back into alignment, and you see massive increase in playfulness, in calm behaviors, obviously improved digestive capabilities. So the list is kind of pretty diverse. I'm particularly interested in looking at it for organ regeneration in conjunction with organotherapy, because this is obviousbe a big thing for the cats, but it can help with dental issues. I mean, if it's a cell, it can.
Well, is there any research, and I want to talk about the research in just a second, but is there any research around stem cell therapy in humans or animals or rats or anything that you know of around cancer specifically?
So that's the one where it gets slightly tricky. So what you've got to remember is that cancer is the proliferation, the unmitigated growth of cells without restraint. Normally there's coding that says grow this fast or replicate this often. Cancer, when it's a tumor cancer, you're in growth overdrive. And this, in the very, very early days of very, very bad stem cell therapy, when people were very unethical and using baby fetal embryonic cells and things like that, that was one of the reasons why it stopped. I wish I could say it was the ethics that stopped them, but it was the medical that stopped them more than anything else, because a baby is coded to grow, and when they used those cells, it was an inappropriate medicine because it caused cancer in some of the human trials and patients and things. So now that no one's doing that anymore, there's nothing to do with any of that. I wouldn't come near that with a barge pole, because that's just off limits, right? It's not good for health. So, but it does come back to some oncology patients would need to be working with an oncologist who also understands the stem cell therapy, because some it's really been able to help. Others we need to be a bit more cautious, because we don't want a runaway situation. So that's the area where you really need specialist advice to navigate that space. And I'm not a veterinary oncologist. There are not very many of them. I think there's about 8 in the United States. And a conversation with someone who understands the science of the stem cells and the veterinary oncologist can then put that pathway together. But that's the hesitation or the caution. But just about everything else, because we're not doing prolific growth otherwise, and stem cells themselves are not coding for prolific growth, they're coding for replacement. So
Right.
it is the rules, the normal rules of being a healthy cell. It's not a diseased cell. So your cancer cell has lost some of its coding, and it trades metabolic burn for immortality and constant growth. So where it used to be able to burn 2 fuels, it can now only burn 1 fuel, but instead of that trait, it gets to be immortal. And so this is the problem, but that's a cell that's damaged, right?
Right.
When you're using a stem cell, it's not damaged. It's a brand new day zero, perfectly functional cell. So if we can get the cancer out through some other means, whether that's dietary, whether that's oxygen therapy, whether all kinds of therapies for that, then this can come in. The stem cell can be used in the healing process, right? Especially if you're going to have done an incision, like an operation to remove a tumor, right? Then there's damage there. So now the stem cells can help improve and heal that. And even this is unrelated now, but even in humans with spinal injury, people who were quadriplegic have been given full leg and arm function again through stem cell therapy in the spine. So it's really powerful. You just have to know what you're working with to make sure that it's targeted correctly.
Right. So then you're basically saying it's more of like what our cats unfortunately deal with the most, which is degenerative ailments, right? Like the liver no longer working, the kidneys breaking down, the joints breaking down, all of the issues
age-related
that are almost not necessarily age. Well, some would say age-related. Yes.
What about?
Well, I was just going to say, so entropy, right? The second law of thermodynamics, let's not get too complicated, but the second law of thermodynamics is this law about entropy, right? So things are moving from a state of order to a state of chaos over a period of time, right? That's a universal law. It happens in the stars and the sky and everything else. It happens in plants, it happens in us, and it happens in our pets. But what happens with when you're working with stem cells is that you are turning that back. You're reversing entropy. You're bringing order, back into the system. So as we age, things become more disordered because there's more things that have caused a toxic assault or an injury or scar tissue or whatever it happens to be. And so the body becomes more chaotic from a biological standpoint. And there's all sorts of mechanisms that protect against that or help overcome that one way or another. So as those high levels of stem cells in the system start to decrease, we don't end up with having no healing function. Our bodies switch from class A healing function to class B. So class B is scar tissue. Right? Scar tissue is a patch over the damage. So we see that in arteries, for example, when there's damage to the lining of the arteries and the blood coming through, right? So scar tissue starts to line those areas where there's damage, and it closes down that aperture. So there's less room for the blood to be pumping through because that's getting more and more constricted. Well, if you use stem cell therapy, right, then you don't have to use scar tissue to repair the circulatory system, so you don't get the closing of that aperture. So scar tissue is great because it's better than nothing, but it's not the ideal. So with the ideal, we maintain a young body and fully functioning biology because we're not having to deal with a patch. We're dealing with brand new, fully functioning cells.
So would this be something that would help, maybe cats with like HCM, heart issues? Is this something that could be?
Well, yeah, because the heart's made of cells. So the body receives those. So when we're talking about the stem cell nutrition, so the animal is going to be eating herbs. These are plants from nature, right? So there's nothing artificial in there. There's nothing laboratory. It's all natural stuff. They're going to eat these herbs. It's mixed in with some liver, so it tastes delicious, so they want to eat it. Then that chemistry, as I said, elevates the signaling that tells the body to release their own stem cells. Those stem cells get in the bloodstream, they start to circulate, and they're looking for a signal. The same way that when you call 911, right? And they'll take down your details. They'll triage and say, is this an emergency or is this a health problem that needs some assistance? Or if you go to the ER, they're going to do the same thing. If someone's bleeding profusely everywhere, they're going to look after you first before they look after the person who stubbed their toe, right? It's going to be in order of importance. And so the body can identify, oh, this is the most serious part of the, where the damage is. We're going to focus our attention there. And so that all gets built up first. And then it's like, okay, well, what's next? Then we'll go over here, we'll deploy some more troops over here. And then what is it over here? And then you get down to the bit where you've got like a little scar that you had when you were 6 from falling off your tricycle. And all of a sudden you realize that scar's disappeared. And you're like, what the heck, because the body's like, well, if there's some damage there, I may as well fix it, right? And so there are weird things that you start to notice when you're taking stem cell therapy, because you're like, I'm sure I had, where's my scar gone, right? But that happens down the line because the body's too busy trying to fix your heart, first of all, because it's like, well, that's pretty important. So depending on the extent of the damage will kind of dictate how long it takes before you see symptoms going down and markers going up, like health markers, biometrics and things, right? So if it's very, very serious, it's going to take longer. If it's a little bit serious, it's going to take shorter time, but it's going to keep working. And the exciting thing is, unlike a drug, a synthetic, that you take it, it's in your system, it activates while it's in there, but your body's trying to get it out, right? Because it knows it's a synthetic item. So it's like, well, that doesn't belong here. So out it goes. And your packet always says, take another one every 8 hours or whatever it is, because your body detoxed it out. What this is doing, because you're activating biology, it gets to work. They go there, they start doing the thing, and then that cell starts to communicate and send out these, it's called the secretome, right? So they secrete molecules out to the other ones in the area, and you get this multiplication effect. So it summons more stem cells in, and then those stem cells at a certain age will start to replicate, right? And so then you get more, and they're still super young compared to the surrounding ones. So you get an ongoing multiplication, youth and healing effect, even after you stop taking the supplement, or even after you've, months after you've had that procedure, if you're having a procedural one. So it's got long-term efficacy as well as almost instantaneous efficacy. With the stem cell nutrition, it activates within an hour. So you get an additional about 4 million circulating stem cells every time you eat it.
Oh, wow. That's huge. That's massive. Wow.
That's crazy. Okay. I'm still thinking about things that it can help with, but then I do have more questions about like how we can do this, So what about things like, I see someone asked about stomatitis. You know, that is such a painful, awful, terrible thing.
Unfortunately, it seems so common. I don't know if it's just because it's our field. And so that's, people come
see so much of it
with ailments, but it feels like it's more and more common.
And also,
and they can't really define it, because there's like some people say that like it's not an autoimmune disease, and some say that it is completely an autoimmune disease. So regardless, there have been things that people say they feel like can actually heal, or they have seen has actually healed stomatitis. Is stem cell therapy, you think, would it be one of them?
So whenever we look at addressing any particular health issue, we have to get to the root cause. Why is this happening? And you point out, it could be autoimmune. It might be instigated from something circumstantial. So if it's something that's circumstantial, then we have to try and address that and stop that first of all, right? Because you can't rebuild a house when it's still on fire. Okay, so we have to put the fire out first, and then we can do the rebuilding. So the stem cells are the rebuilding. They're not a magic potion. They can't do all things right? They do what they do, and it's a really powerful modality. But if there's an infection there, they're not going to be able to get rid of the infection. That's the job of another part of the immune system. And if that part is depressed, then it's not going to perform as well. So often when I'm talking with clients, I'll be recommending, well, we need a protocol that's going to boost the immune efficacy in the animal, the immune power that they have. We want to obviously mitigate any pain and suffering, so that while we're doing the process, the animal is enjoying a better quality of life. Right? And then at the appropriate time, we're going to bring in the rebuilding. So there's sort of these phases. In fact, I usually work to 4 phases, and we do them in the right order. So by identifying the root cause, we can then stop the ongoing, and then we look at cleansing. So we take out the trash. So if the house is all burnt down, you've got to sweep out the ashes and see what's left. And right, so you got to get that out. So we do a detox or a cleanse or something like that, and then we're going to start to rebuild, and that's where the stem cells will come in. So we want to be intelligent in the way that we use it and not be deluded in thinking that it's a magic potion. However, where there's tissue damage, stem cell therapy can heal. And like I said, proper healing, because we're getting new for old, we're not getting a patch, we're not getting, an inferior or a temporary or some kind of Band-Aid situation. It's genuinely new body parts.
Uh-oh.
What about things like, I saw someone was asking about feline herpes, and that's another thing, right? They're going to have it for life. There's terrible flare-ups. That's a virus. So
right.
Would this be part of a healing protocol?
Yeah, but they don't get rid of it. But if the immune system.
Well, and I want to read this comment because I think this is fascinating. Poppy Phillips, who we will be having on our podcast to talk about iridology, which is another whole amazing thing.
Yes, this month.
She recommended stem cell therapy for her little olive Mary that has membrane possibly ulcer over the eye because of the herpes virus. Mm-hmm. So would this help with the tissue part of dealing with herpes?
If there is damage to cells, if there's damage to tissues, then yes, there's every likelihood, until proven otherwise, because the science dictates that it should do the thing. If there's some other block that's in the way, and obviously if there's a continual ongoing infection, that's going to retard the success. It's going to slow the process. It's going to be a block to the natural order of healing, right? So again, that's why I say we've got to get rid of the root cause and set up the body in the right order to succeed. So stem cells can help with scar tissue itself, but so can other things like castor oil help with scar tissue to break that apart and then allow the body's natural processes in the other part of the immune system, the cleansing part of the immune system, to eradicate that from the body. So things like cataracts and fibroids and those kind of things, you can use stem cell therapy, but I usually then recommend that you use the castor oil as well, because you'll get a multiplication effect and then a speed up to the healing. So each condition is going to have a different cause, a different set of therapies. But if there's healing of tissues that's required as part of the process, which often there is, right, then this will be a part of the protocol that would be recommended. And if you're dealing with viruses, then look at ozone therapy, because it's phenomenal. It will destroy the pathogens, right? Stem cells can't destroy the pathogens. They're another cell, but ozone can. And so ozone's very, very safe. It works extremely well with stem cell therapy, especially if you're using the injective, putting the blood back in. You can irradiate that, not irradiate, that's probably the wrong word, but you can infuse the blood with ozone, and then you put it back in, and it's going to do a whole lot of cleansing. So there's even like multimodal, where you kind of hook them together, like you were saying at the start, where you combine photobiomodulation with injected stem cells to do guided therapy. You can use ozone to amplify the effect of, but these are injection ones. So these are fantastic, but there's typically a few barriers in the way to getting to that. Whereas the nutrition, you interrupt my cats. So cute.
It's not a story to tell. She just came running in here and she's like, meow, meow, meow.
Let me tell you all about today.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Oh, but this is so exciting. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the science, just slightly, because I know that I know that we're like slow on, or I don't want to spend the whole podcast on this. Yeah, we're already 33 minutes in. But a little bit about the science. A question about the science actually that I have is all the science currently, or the majority of science currently, being done on humans? Or are they doing a good amount of research on companion animals, pets, or mice?
like most health things, it is weighted to humans because there's typically more money in that market, right? So someone's got to pay for the study. There's vested interests that want to promote a particular thing or whatever else. So there's weighting in the human, but you got to remember biology is pretty consistent across mammal species.
Correct.
So we can extrapolate an awful lot from the human studies at the mechanistic level, and then that sets the tone of what we can expect to see in the animal model. But then we might be changing expectations a little bit because of the speed of the metabolism or other factors, but it gives a really good guideline. But yes, increasing these, and there's more and more research being done because it's just shown to be so effective. And so people are now recognizing, okay, there's really some merit to this. This is not science that somebody came up with. This is science that was built in from the dawn of time inside a body to code it. We're just now getting to the point where we can sort of put a bridle and some reins on it and steer it to where we want to go, instead of just allowing that natural course of entropy to guide you through into slower and slower and slower healing. Like if you break your hip when you're 90, right, it's probably never going to heal. Whereas if you break your hip when you're 10, you'll be jumping on the trampoline 6 months later, right? It's a different story, and that's stem cells. That's what it is. It's stem cells and some mitochondria. But and again, that's sometimes a part of a multimodal therapy that I would recommend to somebody is let's boost the mitochondria too, because they're going to powerhouse the energy supply to then do the things. Anyway, that's a side point. But I don't know where I was going with that, but I get excited.
I still want to call you like queen of analogies, because you were like
so
literally the absolute best at having an analogy for every single thing, and so that it makes it make sense to me. I love it.
Okay, so I want to talk about how it's possible to do this at home, but first I do want to ask about Pushback, because I remember seeing an article that was talking about stem cell therapy, comparing it to probiotics. And there's a lot of people in the conventional medicine world for humans and as well as pets that say, probiotics are ridiculous. They're not a thing. Obviously, there's some crap products out there, but probiotics in general, I'm back on some because I had some antibiotics, and I feel like they do make a big difference. We've seen the difference that it can make. What kind of pushback is, that article is trying to compare stem cells, which when you look into the science of it just for yourself, it's not a probiotic. It's not a probiotic. I don't feel like it's a comparable thing, but I was surprised to see that kind of comparison. What kind of pushback is there, and where is it coming from? Why is that? Why does that exist?
Yeah, I mean, anytime that there's something new, I say new, this is not new, but like we know about it more, and so we're talking about it more, there are going to be skeptics. It's the natural state of being for just survival behavior in humans to be skeptical about something. And this is a good thing. We want to be skeptical. We don't want to be taken for a ride. We want to ask intelligent questions, and we want to get to real truth. And sometimes that takes time. And then as there's more and more evidence, and as the sort of groundswell and it grows, then you get things, early adopters, and then you get people wanting to copy you, like that, that classic kind of thing of how an idea grows. But to be fair, there's reason to be skeptical too, right? And a couple of things. One is because back in the ancient days of doing stem cell therapy in like the 80s or something, then there were serious ethical problems and very serious medical implications as a result, as people were learning the beginning stage. Like when you first learn to learn anything, you're rubbish at it. Like you're going to fall over loads. You're going to be, you want to practice in private until you're good. So it's the same thing. It was, I mean, I think it was a place that they shouldn't have gone in the first place. But anyway, scientists did. And so they got it wrong. And so therefore they got a black mark against their name. And a lot of people were very like, well, that's very questionable. We don't think that's a good idea. So there's a legacy there that needs to be recognized, but also shared as we get better and better science and work on things in a better way. But the other thing to bear in mind as well is, again, nobody wants to be sold, a bill of goods that's no good. You don't want snake oil. You don't want empty promises. You don't want something that's hyped up to the moon and then doesn't deliver. You don't want to be taken for a ride. So understanding what stem cells can do in the body and what they can't do is very important question to address. And sometimes when you hear people talking about it, because we get excited about it, because what we want to do at the end of the day is not be on the bandwagon of one thing or another. We want to see animals healed. We want to see the end of suffering, right? And when you discover a tool that's really powerful, that man didn't come up with, that has been working for however long in doing this in the first place, and now we can just harness it. It's like it's almost almost too good to be true. And so we have been conditioned into believing when something's too good to be true, it probably is, right? No such thing as a free lunch and all that. So skepticism is an important part of this. And to set expectations at the right level, not to suddenly go, well, after 2 doses of stem cells, we're going to get rid of all the cancer and we're going to go back in time 10 years. And right, that's unrealistic. But let's look at what is actually possible. And there's loads of evidence to say these things are attainable, they're achievable, they're realistic. We're looking at 60 to 90 days for this or whatever it might be. Let's get to the root cause of the problem as to why the body's malfunctioning. Is it just entropy, in which case it's pretty straightforward, or are we fighting an infection, an autoimmune disease, something that requires education of the immune system, which case then we might want to look at transfer factors. We might want to look at heavy detox to get that sort of reset, because autoimmune diseases are reversible too, right? People don't often talk about that, but the science is all there. It's been done countless times. It just hasn't filtered through. So it might take a lot longer then for an animal that's having some tissue damage as part of an autoimmune disease, because this might take us a year. And then we bring this in the later stages to accelerate the healing at the end. So in the grand scheme of things, a year and a half is nothing compared to the lifetime of an animal if you're able to actually cure them, right? Now, I'm not going to promise that this is going to cure all things, because I don't want to do that. I'd be lying if I did. But when we use it intelligently as part of a protocol that is looking at what do we really need to address, and what are the most natural and effective, safe and kind protocols to weave together, then we can get results that we haven't seen before. And that's exciting.
That is super exciting. So it's not, so this isn't something that you would necessarily recommend the cats just take on a daily basis to prevent aging?
Oh, mine do. Yeah. Mine have been on it for 2.5 years. So it's a preventative. It's slowing the aging process, stopping any damage. Like if you start to have acquired damage, there's a long period of time where nothing is seen, nothing is visible, no symptoms are manifesting on, any kind of clinical frame. But it's happening inside the biology somewhere. And all of a sudden, poof, like a mushroom, it comes up one night and you go to see the vet or the doctor and they're like, oh, well, this has been brewing for 8 years. You're like, really? So having a having preventative stem cells means that as any damage is acquired, let's say my cat fell out of the tree and had a little sprain and whatever, so that would normally elicit then some scar tissue. Well, he's not going to have scar tissue because he's got stem cells in his system every day. He's going to get brand new ligaments, muscles, tendons, whatever, to heal that significantly faster than without. So there's a whole lot of prevention that you can use. Doesn't have to be daily, but you can do it daily, right? And then you can also use it therapeutically when there's an actual issue.
Do you think that stem cell therapy like this could possibly be the key to longevity for our cats? Like, what if there were a study done on maybe, cats from the same litter or whatever, cats of the same age, and you have half of them taking this every day along with their normal whatever, and half of them not taking this, and judge and see how long, what ailments they end up with, right? Like, I mean, it's a long time. That's like a 20-year process, maybe a 15-year process, but like
30-year process.
Right. But if we started now, I would love the science to be able to see what does the majority of the cats on stem cell therapy, do they actually come down with kidney disease? Do they have the organ or the organ failure that they degenerative diseases and osteoarthritis or arthritis in general, right? Like they say that by the age of 12, 90% of cats have some form of arthritis. That's like, it's crazy. By the age of 6, 60%. So like, what if that doesn't happen to would you think, I know you haven't done the study, but would you think that the group of cats on stem cell therapy would most definitely have less of these issues? So
logically speaking, yes, but also you've got to remember lifestyle is the driver of this stuff for the most part. So lifestyle choices, the way that we structure the diet, the exercise, the detoxification, the richness or protection of the microbiome, all of the 7 pillars of animal longevity that I talk about, right? If we're still doing the conventional standard kibble and no detox and all those things, then the aging process is going to be accelerated. That's the status quo. We have accelerated aging in every pet that isn't having a more intelligent approach to a more natural, rewilded approach to their lifestyle and care. We have 90% control over their health destiny and their longevity through the decisions that we make about their lifestyle. In the wild, they make all their decisions themselves. The genetics is still going to have a 5 to 10% control, right? But they're making decisions that are species appropriate and they do better for it. We don't see the diseases out there. So when we copy what we're doing, what they're doing in the wild, and bring a rewilded kind of lifestyle to the way pets live with us, then they can have all the benefit of that healthy lifestyle from the wild. And then we can augment that. So we're going to then bring in the biohacking stem cell therapy, preventative factor, which is going to slow the entropy. We're never going to make someone immortal, and it would be a bad thing if we did. But we can definitely bring back a lot more order, biological order from the chaos, but at the same time be smart about making sure that they are having appropriate nutrition so that their cells are nourished. There's no point having cells and then giving them trash to metabolize, right? Because you kind of you're filling up a bucket with a hole in it, right? So you want to do both sides of the equation.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Yes, I really truly think that, logically speaking, the more that you set the body up to succeed, the body will succeed. It's really straightforward. There's an innate intelligence in the cells through the DNA, through the knowledge that the immune system has, and you can always dial that up with things like transfer factors and stuff as well. So there's loads of different ways that you can get a significantly extended lifespan, but we only want that if it's going to be high quality of life. And that's why I say we emphasize on that 90% of control that we have over the factors that cause the suffering and the accelerated aging. And when you put the two together, then you've got a fantastic recipe. And that's what my cats are doing. You know, they are going to be a long-term experiment. I haven't really got a marker against another specific cat that was born at the same time, because there was no way I was going to give it to one and not the other, right? So they're both on it, but it'll be very interesting in time to see. And so far, I mean, they're going to be 8 in about a month's time, and they've not needed to go to the vet for anything other than their checkups, and then an occasional accident, as in like someone got bitten, or but it's nothing to do with a chronic health issue. There's no symptoms, there's no pain, there's no so something's working.
Yeah, I love that. So guys, the link here is in the comments and the description.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So we can do this at home. You put a link to this product that is a simple addition to their food.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, just tell us a little bit about what does that look like,
product,
right?
Yeah.
So this is a daily thing? Is it in every meal? And what are the things, I know that because we've looked into this as well. We actually have a jar of it ourselves for our babies. But what are the things people need to look for as this does become more popular? What makes it a good product?
Sure. Yeah. So when I talked about the 3 different styles of stem cell therapy, very broadly speaking at the start, this is the third one that we talked about. So stem cell nutrition. So this is an activator. As I said, you eat the plants create the chemical signaling to tell the body to release stem cells. So it's your cat's very own stem cells that were locked in jail because there wasn't a chemical key to unlock the door and release them out. So we've changed that. And every time you eat it, as I said, the studies are showing around 4 million stem cells additionally are going to be floating around in the system looking for, what can I go and fix? What can I heal? What can I bring order back to? So at the moment, there's maybe 2 products. There's one that I know obviously intimately. This is what Mary and Pippin have been on for all this time. And for a very, very long time, it might still be the only one. I just have heard some kind of a whisper that there's something, but at the moment, it's not a crowded marketplace, is the point to say here. So there's not like 500 to choose from like there would be if you're looking at omega-3 oil, for example, right? Excuse me. So what you want to be looking for then is the, sourcing quality, proof of like scientific studies,
Right.
the certificate of analysis. Like, you know, the supplement industry can be really cheeky, right? There's not a lot of regulation. You can put whatever you want on the label, and half the time it's not what's actually inside the bottle. So certificate analysis proves that yes, what is said on here is in here. The studies that say, okay, well, this was funded by no one or a government or an organization or the company itself. So there's transparency over where the studies are coming from, and then you can read through and look at the. And so if a company is very transparent on those things, you can have some fairly good levels of confidence that they're not trying to skew results, they're not taking biased studies, they're not stopping studies just before with the point where they know it goes bad, which is so common.
Yeah.
Look for trusted sources who are talking about it. Like if people happen to like and know me, you know, that might be a point of endorsement to say, well, it's probably a decent product, right? Because someone else has already, I've already done the work to find about it, learn about it, research, text it, try it out on the cats, try it out on myself, do all the things, right? To have the confidence to speak about it. So if someone that you trust is endorsing it, talking, recommending, trying it, then that obviously can give you some confidence as well. But we know that, okay, well, let me just talk about the product for 2 seconds. So there's a number of plants in there, and then because it's for pets, we add in collagen because they're almost always deficient in collagen, and this is amazing to help with a bunch of stuff. And then there's the liver in there, which is organic liver, and that's delicious to make because most cats don't want to go around eating herbs too much, right? But you know. So it's tasty. They like it. You just mix it in with their food. But these plants have been tested independently out of dozens to be the forerunners, the ones that are most potent in that signature and creating a full 360 kind of approach to it. And then it was tested to see what levels of each one of those 6 or 7 gives the optimum result. So if you had 20% of everything, does that give you the same power as if you had 10% of that, 13% of this, 25% of that, 70%? And so that the recipe has really been very fine-tuned. So when people can talk to you about that level of depth, that they've taken the time to get to something that really is as good as it possibly could be, and then is looking to say, well, how can we improve it still? How can we make it useful for horses? Because we don't want the liver in there, for example. How can we make it useful for aquatic animals who may not eat powder? Like, you know, and so the company's looking. So if someone's showing signs in that direction, you know, they're leading from the heart, right? You know that they actually care about the animals and they're trying to do this rather than spin a web of lies and be kind of, you know, a fake product. So there's a lot of ways that you can assess that. But at the moment, it's a very, very empty marketplace because this is very, very new in terms of knowing which plants are doing the job.
So this is called Pet Regen, right?
That's
right. So it's called Pet Regen and
regenerative medicine.
Regenerative medicine. I was going to say regeneration of the kitten. I love that. Okay. And the link is here, guys, if you want to check it out. Let me ask you this question about dosing. So you talked about having specific protocols for a cat that has an ailment, right? Like you want to address root cause, all of these things. And we 1000% believe or agree with you as far as we want to look at diet. We want to look at all the steps of longevity, right? Like all the pillars there. And then have a narrowed approach on the healing of an ailment. If somebody's using it, is there like a different dosing? If somebody were working with you, would you have a different dosing for a cat that we're just using this for preventatively because we want them to live forever and always have those 4 million extra blank checks in them to fix anything that's going down, right? Or versus a cat that is dealing with, you know, really bad kidney disease or arthritis or something like that.
So in order to get the approximately 4 million released, it's the dose as described on the label there. Now, I always like to suggest to people when they're first introducing any product, if it's not an emergency situation, to start low and go slow and bring that in at a quarter dose and do it and let the animal system cope with that, adjust to that. We don't want to trigger a GI reaction or anything like that. So start low and go slow and then move up to the dose. If you are in a critical or a serious health issue that you're trying to resolve, there's some kind of important health issue that is suffering and things that you're trying to, right, then you could take the product 3 times a day, because at the end of the day, it's food. It's food.
Right.
So it's not you can't overdose in that sense. There's no chemistry that's mucking up the way the body works, or it's stopping things from happening or speeding up the GI tract or any of those it's food. It's nutritional stem cell therapy that then activates the release, right? So you can have it 3 times a day, and in which case that animal is going to have 12 million additional stem cells in a 24-hour clock than they would have. I mean, that's phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
For a cat that you are doing just maintenance kind of protection stuff the way Mary and Pippin are having it, well, they have it once a day or once every 2 days. Now I'm going kind of heavy-handed on them because I know it's safe, right? But you can do it, once a week. You can do it twice. You can kind of set, I mean, again, it's food. So there isn't like, oh, you have to follow the dose and do it like this and blah, 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 right? And you can also pulse as well. So you can go all in for a month and then back it off a little bit. And so you can do a dose every day for a month. And then you could say, well, we're going to do 1 dose once a week and draw it right back and then bring it back on again. And the body quite likes that dynamic space of, because if it receives everything all the time, if there's always consistency, the body will adapt, right? And you get less impact as a result. So pulsing in and out like this means the body's going to work harder and they're going to apply that better. If an animal is really in need of some serious healing and therapy, then I would say go all in, go 3 times a day. Now, you obviously will go through the product faster doing that, but in terms of a cost-benefit analysis, like, it's no question. Like, a stem cell therapy itself in the UK, I don't know the prices so much in the US, but a stem cell therapy where extracting the tissue or the blood, spinning it, doing it back in again, it's about £10,000, right? Between £7,000 and £10,000, right? So you're looking at more in dollars to do that. It's a high bar, right? To have that. There's only 2 stem cell vets in the UK. So, can you get there? Are you near that? So this, again, it's a challenge to do that. Is the patient so frail that they can't actually go through donating, right? So and I don't want to black mark the therapy. It's an amazing thing, but my point is it's just not necessarily available to everybody.
Right.
This
and the
is
cost, right?
Because it's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the price, and you get to do multiple times from 1 jar. Like, if you've got a great big dog, it's going to go faster than you've got a little kitty cat, right? So, I mean, that's ages for Mary and Pippin because they're, it's cat servings, cat portion sizes. So you really get your money's worth on that. So even if you need to go heavy-handed and do three doses a day, for example, then it's worth the investment because it's 1 jar less than going to the vet. So it's a no-brainer.
A no-brainer.
I love this so much.
Okay, so this is so much information. It's so exciting. It is so new and it is so uplifting. I just feel like this is, and who better to help illuminate us than you to help
the
us
analogy
understand.
queen.
The analogy queen to help us understand this. If there's one thing that you would want people to remember from this, what would it be?
Did we lose you?
Oh, I think we're back now. I'm sorry that you vanished. Try that one more time.
We just went, our screen just went black for
technology.
So if there was one thing that you would want us cat parents to remember from this conversation, which is very illuminating, what would it be?
Science is always growing as a field of knowledge. Like, the science exists out there. We're discovering it like one little pick at a time. It's like archaeology. You just like, oh, look, there's a pottery shard under there. It's been there all the time. We've only just discovered it. The body of knowledge for science is always growing. Don't be afraid of a new thing, but treat it intelligently and look for the evidence in whatever way suits you to do that. But have hope, because the more we know, the better we get. And we don't have to accept, like when we discovered antibiotics, right, we realized that we didn't have to accept people dying from infections. Right. It was a new thing. It was kind of like, oh, well, that's mold. Is that, like, and people were skeptical. But now we just take it totally for granted and expect that that's going to do the thing. Right. Well, so this is going to follow a similar pathway as we go, look what it can do. And then that brings in so much hope. Think of the number of lives that have been saved because of penicillin. Okay. So look at the number of lives that can be lengthened and improved with really good healing. So the worst thing I think that we have as pet parents is a day when you're told there's nothing that you can do. Right. And they go, oh, well, our toolkit's empty now. There's nothing you can do. And I don't actually believe that that's ever true. I think there's always more that we can do. There's hundreds of modalities that I'm aware of and things that can be used. Right. And people come to me and we have conversations like, I never heard of that. And I'm like, I know, because it's not being talked about, but it's real, and do it. And they do it. And it's amazing. So there's always hope in a situation. And this carries enormous amounts of hope. I don't want anyone to come in and have a misalignment and think that it's a miracle product, or that it does everything, or that let's be realistic, but let's also realize just how powerful this is. And I would imagine as we go forward, both in human medicine and in animal medicine, that we're going to get to the stage where this is the standard, this is the normal. And we might go to the doctor on a yearly basis. We might go into the vet on an annual basis and draw a little blood, right? And then spin and store that for the moment when you need to have an injection. And it can just be as simple as that. And so you go in annually to get a top up of stem cells, right? That might become the standard. We might all be taking stem cell nutrition as part, one meal a day that has a sprinkle of that. Like it's not hard to do these things, but when you see the results, so I just think people just be inspired. But don't be deluded. Get the balance right on the pendulum, right? We don't want to be too far this way or too far that way. But really, there's a lot of hope and a lot of excitement in this space.
Well, and so much hope, I think, comes from, for me, what I like the most is, one, that it's food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's food that you can't overdose, and 3, that it can't harm, right? So that's the recipe for something great in our book, right? Like that's where we are, is like, what can we use, preferably proactive care, right?
Mm-hmm.
What can we use that does the least amount of harm, that can only help, and that I don't need to worry, like at home, that I'm going to give too much and cause death, or something bad. So this is like perfect.
Oh, I love it.
Every therapy that I ever talk about has to pass a rigorous test before I will open my mouth. And I set this at day one when I started Dr. Zoolittle, that it has to be safe, kind, effective, and natural. Because that way it becomes a therapy that's universal across the species. It's not just limited to a dog or a giraffe, right? Because mammals all have mammalian biology. So safe, kind, effective, and natural means that it can be applied. We might have to tweak the edges a little bit here and there, dose, and obviously things like that. But it then does no harm. It follows that Hippocratic oath of do no harm, right? And we're going to see the body embrace that therapy and not be burdened down with the side effects and the stuff that comes from something that's synthetic.
Right. Oh my God. Penny, you are the best.
Just fantastic.
You're the best ever. Thank you so much. Thank you for being awesome. Thank you for being, we tried, so we were able to grab Penny because she lives in the UK, but she's been on a trip to the States here for the past 3 months. She's about to head back. But so that's why we were like, can we have you on as many times as possible on our podcast? Because we need your brain, because you're just brilliant, and you're so brilliantly spoken. I just love the way that you explain things. Yeah. I feel like I'm going to call you every time that I have a question about even my own health, and be like, what should I do? And what does this mean? Right? I got a diagnosis. What does this mean? And you'll break it down by a blank check and a cartoon molecule.
Yeah, I mean, seeing things in pictures, we all know pictures tells 1,000 words. So I just happen to see pictures all the time. So it's just very easy to roll with that. But, you know, if you need help, then there's stem cells for humans too. So, you know, take the nutrition for yourself and have those benefits.
Yes, actually the same company, isn't it? The same company also makes it for humans, correct?
It's a sister company. So there's one company that's for the humans, one company that's for the pets. And the recipe is the same minus the liver, obviously, because we don't want to be eating liver flavored things. But the recipe is proprietary, and these companies are separate but in relationship to each other. So it's completely above board and ethical and whatever. But you can test it against the two things and see that it really, you know, there's so many studies from the human side in elite athletes, in biohackers, things like that. Countless studies and results with that. And so when you know that it's the same product that your pets are getting, it's like, well, you know, incredible.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I went down the rabbit hole on the website. I love all the information that they share. It really is fantastic that they're very transparent. So that is, you know, the COAs and all of that. It's absolutely incredible. So I really encourage everyone that just wants to learn more to just go visit and learn as much as you'd like. But for people that want to follow you and find out more about you, where do they find you? Where do they follow you? Where are you at?
So you can come across to Dr. Zoolittle, so just at Dr. Zoolittle on Instagram. I actually put up there some stem cell recipes so one for pets, one for cats specifically. So this is a little thing that you can make using the pet regen, but a way to really, I mean, they love it. And then there's also my secret recipe for stem cell hot chocolate for people, because chocolate releases stem cells in humans. It's the best news ever. So there's a recipe for that. So if you go to Instagram and then to the link in bio, there's a free gift there, the stem cell recipes, if you want to get activated, you know, above and beyond what we've just talked about tonight. But otherwise, I have Forever Young, which is my membership for pet parents to then have access to all the information. So there's over 100 hours worth of teaching video in there across different disease modalities, across different expertise, therapies and modalities, the 7 pillars of animal longevity, all the protocols are in there for dental health, for pet glow up, winding back the clock 10 years. I mean, it's just all inside membership. So Forever Young is probably the best place to go find all that stuff. And I think there'll be a link to that in the Instagram bio as well.
Wonderful.
You are such a beautiful human.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
This is incredible.
Yep. And thank you all for joining us. I hope you learned as much as I did. I feel like I want to just like trap this all in my brain, and I'm going to go get some stem cell nutrition.
I'm going to go get some chocolate
myself. Thank you guys for joining. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank you, Penny.